Well, let's talk about where we're at. Where we're at today is something I call the walk and work world. And we live our lives at the speed of light. And it is only getting more and more hyper as we go forward. So if this is the world we live in, I found it very intriguing that Dr. Bush showed the picture of a waiting room. A waiting room? How many here, please tell me, have friends or family or yourself who have been through the waiting room blues? Okay, now isn't this a little incongruous? So here we live in a walk and work world, and we still have something in our offices called a waiting room. How many here have waiting rooms? Isn't that something? Most of you. Now, let me ask you this question. How many believe, even amongst doctors, that perception can be turned into reality? Thank you very much. So if that's the case, the first thing we have to adjust to is the perception, I'm giving you an example, of a waiting room. You see, waiting rooms no longer fit in modern society. Transition rooms, maybe. Reception areas, maybe. Waiting rooms, absolutely out. No one will tolerate it anymore. In fact, studies have been done. We all know this. In the point-and-click world, when you're on your laptop or your cell phone, you have about 3 seconds to capture someone's attention. Is that a fair statement? About 3 seconds? They've also proved that if someone is waiting, it wasn't about physicians, you've got about 10 to 15 minutes before this happens. Everybody says, will the waiting ever end? Because they're so busy, they don't have time. So I don't want to just present the problem. So what are some options? He's talking about it usually takes the conversion of events, some of them small, which in the aggregate produce or drives change. I'm giving you now the interpretation into the change world. So that book, if you read it, is really about what drives change. He then wrote a second book, which was already out, and I didn't know it until I got it, and that was called Blink. Has anyone heard of Blink? All right. This is a great book. Great book because this is the power of thinking without thinking. Think about that. The power of thinking without thinking. What it's all about, he says that some of the most greatest decisions ever made have been made by instinct and not by logic and rationale. And he goes into a lot of these decisions that were made that way. Now, the interesting thing about the book, it actually is about what promotes change. What he's saying is, instinct really helps promote change, promotes change. It is the logic and the continual rationalizing of something that creates the paralysis. His third book, great book called Outliers. Outliers is the story of success. And in Outliers, he talks about the determinants. So what are the determinants to determine success? So I beg you to think about your practices, because there are determinants in all practices that are common if we can find them and we can share them and we can work on them, that in effect will drive success stories. But that's got to require that one bad word, change and choice. That's part of the equation to get there. So what this book does is creates change. So his first one to me drives change, the second one promotes change, and this one creates change. How many here have heard of the Beatles? All right, I got one unanimous. And I only saw some of this, but I want to see hands up. But that's okay. How many here have heard of Bill Gates? Both of them are in the book. One determinant that they had in common, and actually all of the individuals had in common were successful, is they had 10,000 hours of practice. And like Dr. Bush, he took the risk and said, I'm going to break the mold and I'm going to create the future. So he is really someone you could look at to say, he saw the events coming together, took advantage of it, and he started to drive change. He used intuition. There was no logic that this would have worked by his own admission. He used intuition to promote the change. And then what he did, he worked 10,000 hours to get it right, and he created change.